Are you looking to stay informed about what's going on in Madison without the media spin? Well, here's the latest news from the Wisconsin Assembly Chambers brought right into your home, directly from the office of your representative, who truly values his constituents' feedback and is always working hard on the issues that matter to you. Welcome to the Ramthun Report.
Hello, fellow patriots. Welcome to our 39th episode, and this episode is about how the truth never changes, but the excuses always do. This week's hot topics include a recap of all the truth we have revealed here in Wisconsin, a recap of how all the excuses have evolved, and we end with a powerful press release in response to Senator Breniers' conference, which reveals that some who claim they are experts and there is nothing to see here are keeping some very important things from you. So here's Rep. Ransom to give you a recap of all the truth that this office has been reporting out to you.
Hello everybody, thank you for this week's Ransom Report number 39. 39 is super fine. Got a couple of things to say before I get into the meat and potatoes, not in particular order. My apparel today is, my wardrobe is presented to you by my lovely wife Carol Ann. She likes to help suggest what I might want to present myself in every day, and I want to thank her for this bright and cheerful element. It's reflective of her upcoming birthday, which is on December 24th. Yes, she's a Christmas baby, and yes, we separate her birthday and Christmas separately because she's deserved it. The other thing I want to say on a personal note is I'm reminded how blessed I am, not just from her presence in my life, but the individuals who work with me in this office have been instrumental, and I want people to know 24/7, 365 that we wouldn't be where we are if we weren't a team, and this office is pretty tight right now. I've got Tristan Johannes, who is immeasurably one of the most talented people I've ever worked with in data, discovery, and strategy. He's an individual who is truly blessed beyond measure. And we've got Erin Yeager also in this office, who, when she's not physically here, she's bird dogging stuff from her home front, and she's been inspirational and very pivotal in the success of this office as well. So as I go into the Christmas holiday and I reflect on gratitude and blessings, and of course to pay honor and respect to the birth of our Lord and Savior, I am reminded what He's done in my life. And these three people I just spoke about are big parts of my life right now, as well as my family too. So let's get into the meat and potatoes, ladies and gentlemen, because there's a lot to say. In fact, I've got some notes here. I've got so much to say to you today that I had to put it down on paper, and with Tristan's help, we're going to try to bust through this thing here. So segment one is to talk about how this office has always been on the side of truth, to push factual data for truth, to get closure, to end the conspiracy conjecture regarding our elections. That's my focus. And for us, truth never changes, so it's been fairly easy. And over time, it's been revealed slowly. Let's go back to remind you guys, just as recently as this past July, not too far ago, but far enough. The Arizona pre-audit results showed all sorts of irregularities with process, chain of custody, ghost voters, manipulated voter rolls, and voting data irregularities. While some Dems say, oh, there were more ballots for Biden, they neglect the multitude of data that reveals the manner in which those ballots were obtained. That's the key point. They just look at the total and say he won 81 million to 75 million or 76 million. That doesn't qualify the legitimacy of those ballots, and that's what this process is starting to reveal. 2 hard drives and machines, built-in cell phone routers and tabulators. They had access to internet, so you've got a lot of those questions outstanding. Item number 2, log file data on hard drives is wiped out from updates and was confirmed to happen in multiple states. The log file data is pivotal in finding out who, what, when, where, and how. We all know why. And this came out in August with me when I did the press release, when I was at the symposium. It was a big deal with machines, and we never really got closure on where Dominion was at with their task list and the order of their list. We never got information back from ES&S, and I asked them and Wisconsin Election Commissions, and it's crickets. Kind of makes you wonder why. We all know why. Digging deeper into Wisconsin, which his activity was from September into as recently as October, election laws were broken. 12.13, subsection 2, Baker 7. Racine County's investigation proved the SVDs, special voter deputies, were not allowed into nursing home facilities, and it was announced and admitted on camera, and that action affected all 72 counties. Also, state statute 6.84 and 6.875 were broken. That's 3 statutes that were broken. And I want to remind everybody, when we talk about reclaiming ballots, the word decertification comes up. Well, I suppose if the Electoral College certifies an election from electoral ballots that are sent by each state, I suppose the action to reclaim those ballots is in effect decertification. But the word decertification and or reclaiming e-ballots doesn't go any further than the presidential seat. It's a presidential ballot process. It doesn't affect any other elected office seat, whether it's midterms for Congress, which is senators and House of Representatives. It doesn't affect state positions. So when people say, Ramthun, you want to decertify the Wisconsin election, does that mean you should be in the seat too? It has nothing to do with my seat, a state senator's seat, or a congressional seat. It's just the presidential seat. Electoral ballots only affect the presidential seat. You need 270 or more in the country to be in the chair. Okay, so if anybody who's wondering why it's just on that focus, that's because that's by the constitutional requirements. It's only a presidential thing. When Wisconsin Election Commission told all county clerks and ultimately the municipal clerks within each county how not to do the right thing and break the law, it affected the entire state. And the only ballot seat that was on for all counties in the state was the presidential. So that's another reason why the fraud that occurred in Racine County, which perpetuated throughout the state, is a reason to ask to reclaim our ballots and or decertify. 12.11, CTCL monies was used to bribe the Wisconsin 5 cities to vote. And the rule, the statute says you can't do anything more than $1. So if we had $8.8 million come into this state, I think they're a little bit over that $1 minimum. So we had bribery going on to manipulate the outcome of the vote to get an action that certain actors wanted. Hundreds of emails, reveal out-of-state Michael Spritzer Rubenstein ran Green Bay election and coordinated with the Wisconsin 5. This was centrally controlled by one guy who happened to be in Green Bay, but all kinds of email activity between him and Vogue and Corey Mason and Racine. We got it all on record. It's all proof. Okay? Real-time system that allows them to see votes coming in real time, who voted, who didn't, where they were in the mailing process on election day, indicating they could easily be added. These actors were watching the activity of the vote while it was in process, live. And they could see where they could leverage assistance for their goal, which is to change the outcome. So they were watching this real time. Voting system data riddled with multitudes of irregularities. We're hearing more and more about this every day. More voters in file than exist can easily be switched from active to inactive. Irregular birth dates, irregular voter ID numbers, many instances of numbers greater than the victory switched from active to inactive or did not even show a proper ID. Layers of malfeasance, layers of illegality occurred within that process over and above 12.13 and 12.11 and 6.84 and 6.875. We've got multiple statutes broken. We've got procedural actions breaking the law. All kinds of problems there. Voter rolls built up and purged in a pattern since 2008. Now, in last week's Ransom report, we showed you the graph very clearly. It showed incremental increases and decreases, and it covered all 72 counties. The big ones are at the top, and those graphs were quite large and easier to read. But if you follow that all the way down to the bottom, the pattern was there. The parallels were there. It was controlled from a central source. And we're going to get to the root of that, boys and girls. Hang on, buckle up. All purged voters came back each time. So right before the election happened, right up, and then let's change the outcome, and then back down again. This pattern also reflected to be consistent in all 72 counties, showing central control systems not independent. So this thing is going to get peeled, and we're real close to this truth coming out. Much more to come. Stay tuned. It's going to be great. Thank you.
The more we move forward, the more we are finding consistency in the concerns of the people that our elections were manipulated. Now let's give you a breakdown of the changing obstruction that we have seen that has kept us from being able to resolve this situation and move on.
Segment 2, we're on a roll. Let's keep going. The excuses always keep changing. So in the first segment, we talked about truth, fact, and what this office is trying to say, which is focus on the process, not the people. Successful people talk ideas. Unsuccessful people talk about people. I don't really want to talk about people. I think the mechanics of process will tell the story. This isn't about throwing shade on anyone in the building. It's about pointing out what the people are seeing. And what my colleagues need to understand is, as I travel the state, as I talk to constituents in my districts, as I talk to constituents from other districts all over the state, this is what they're seeing. You're blaming me for them being upset. Pay attention to this part. The idea that we're trying to tell you is what they're believing and what they're seeing. And I've heard the term Republicant. I'm a Republican. I think it's important to see that after our last segment showed we have been revealing truth that continues to barrel toward a conclusion, and the responses the people have received continue to shift as reasons for inaction. There's a solution here. It's the resolution. The resolution is the solution. There's more effort seems to be taken to not do the right thing than to do the right thing. So to clarify, the people, they are getting the idea that those who do not act are doing so because they were involved in this. Or people who were involved in this are telling people not to get involved or act, and that's why there's inaction. Let's look at how they got that idea, ladies and gentlemen. The people are concerned nothing's getting done, and they keep asking me, where's everybody else? Other representatives heard it last night in Waukesha. Where's everybody else? We asked for a forensic audit, we asked for a forensic Arizona-style audit in July. And the people responded in kind. They wanted it too. They were told that there was one happening with the LAB audit. It wasn't. That was not a full forensic physical cyber audit. It was an audit. It came back with 30 recommendations and 18 suggestions for legislation that would probably get vetoed, but it wasn't a full surgical forensic audit. They were told no one knows what the definition of a forensic audit actually is. We told them. We broke it down, parsed it out, crystal clear. Again, another excuse. Another excuse was the people were told there was a comprehensive investigation being done with a special counsel. They didn't seem to understand they wanted a 24/7 live stream process that both sides of the aisle could view so it could be transparent on what was happening. So to the point of the special counsel issue, I think the additional resource to the legislative body is good. I think the individual in question, we all know who he is, was good. The problem is the contract, the non-disclosure agreement between the individual and the Speaker of the Assembly, and that did not allow for transparency as well. So when you set something up to run that way, you're going to have a doubt right out of the gate, and that's what we got. We tried to pass laws. This is the statement. Well, we tried to pass laws, but they were vetoed, so there was nothing we can do until we get a new governor. And then go into the sales pitch, which is, so let's donate to our selected candidates so we can get a new governor. That's all optics. It doesn't get anything done. And the excuse is to try to do something and fail isn't good enough. And the people see that, the lack of effort. After we saw the Racine County Sheriff's investigation and CTCL lawsuits, we saw evidence 4 Wisconsin laws were broken. So we moved to reclaim ballots. That's what we did. We took the action. Then the comments came out, he's off the rails. Myself specifically, perhaps Janelle, anybody who's asking questions, fighting for truth, we're off the rails because we're asking for truth. That's an ad hominem approach, which also includes refusing to look at the proof. We've got information, we've got the proof, but let's start name calling people now and claiming they're something they're not, so you can deflect and show your indifference, and your inaction is qualified. There's no legal path or mechanism. Never done before. Constitutional attorneys we have. Really? Which ones do you have? I hear the term. I've used the term. I have a couple of names I've given out. I'm going to have more next week. I'll give you one right now. You can look them up. John Eastman. John Eastman. His resume has credentials listed longer than my arm. He has told me he will get me a memo brief to qualify the right, the plenary right, to ask to reclaim our electoral ballots, supported by the Constitution. And that's what I think we need, because we've got too many people hiding behind what the Madison bubble perspective was, which came from Ledge Council and from the Legislative Reference Bureau. By the way, I would also add that the national constitutional attorneys who I've spoken to, and when they do send me something, will be identified and qualified, credentials as well as their memo. When I tell them about the situation, they don't tell me, sorry Tim, it can't be done. They don't tell me there's no mechanism. They tell me there is a mechanism, it's your resolution, and they tell me that there is a right to ask because it's in the Constitution. So I bring that up because if they would tell me, hey, thanks for asking, but you know, you're really barking up a tree here, it's not going to fly, Ramthun, I would say, okay, I tried, I gave it my best, I went down swinging, and I'd be the first to tell everybody in the world that I was wrong to even try. But I'm a Republican, and I don't believe in can't. And I believe that this is an unprecedented, historic time in our life, and there's people here that could make history for not just this state, but for our nation and for its future. And they're sitting on their hands because they're told to. Start asking some questions about the source of where you're told not to engage in this, and you might get some answers that will get you to see the light. Here's another excuse for you. I heard this one as recently as last evening, and I could not believe it. Well, even if we do it, which is reclaim our ballots, Congress won't honor it. Well, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That's a Wayne Gretzky quote. It's applied to hockey, but in this case, we don't know till we try. Republican Ramthun wants to try because it's an option to do so, and there's no precedence you can't. There's constitutional language that says you can. You have a mechanism in the resolution that says you can. So this Republican says we need to try, and I will continue to push that question and that narrative and that goal until it's over the line for the victory of all, including members of this building. Moving forward, the Dems will just do this each time. Unintended consequences. This is the last excuse I heard last night as well. If we open up this can of worms and allow for decertification, when we're not in control, the other side is going to do the same thing, or something to that regard. Well, my first answer is, then don't cheat. If you don't cheat, there's nothing to complain about, there's nothing to certify. So if you don't cheat, you don't break the law, make the rules clear, and focus on those things, and then enforce areas where laws are broken, which we haven't done for 12.13, 6.84, 6.875, and 12.11. We haven't enforced those laws being broken. So as we continue to debate whether or not we should do something, which is what the people are asking for, reclaim our 10 electoral ballots, they should have never been certified in the first place, at least Wisconsin can take a stand. And I'll remind everybody at this point in my expression that Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Arizona specifically are looking at the resolution that I put forth for this state to do that action, and they're looking to use it for a template in their states. Again, I would tell you that if it's not possible to do and unconstitutional to do, then why are they considering doing it too? Not just because we did it first, we asked the question. We haven't done anything yet, we just asked the question. But something's going to happen here, ladies and gentlemen, and Wisconsin's leading the way right now with minimally asking the question. I don't care who goes first. In a Republican-controlled legislative body, we should have been done already with this, but we're not. You should ask yourself why. But as long as we're one of the 4 or 5 that does, I'll be happy. I know our state will be happy, elated beyond measure, and I know our country will be more than excited and happy for itself, because you've got a handful of states that want to bring this to closure and do the right thing of by and for the people. I'm coming back to the resolution. It's all we have left to do, and we need to do it. And our legislative body, specifically the Senate side, needs to stop for a minute and ask themselves lots of questions. And I'm inviting any of you, all of you, to hang out with me anywhere, at any time, to talk this through on what the right thing to do is for you. So I'll remind you, invite you, and ask one more time to take action of, by, and for the people. And I think blessings beyond measure will fall into your lap and into your lives. And the best blessing you can give is doing the right thing. Thank you. Segment 3 coming up.
We are doing our best to help those who continue to find reasons to avoid the truth to see the reason the people are unhappy. We hope that we stress that it is not the people that are to blame, but the idea that needs to be addressed. Lastly, we have a very explosive press release we issued this week with some other representatives, which reveals some serious issue with Senator Breniers' conference on the idea that everything was safe and secure. Things are not as they appear.
Last but certainly not least, segment 3 today, ladies and gentlemen. I never sit around watching paint dry or grass grow. I believe that my position as a servant of, by, and for the people is to continually work to make a difference for them, to make their lives better, to do the right thing. There was an event you may have heard about this past Monday. Wisconsin State Senator Timothy Breniers held a press conference. Should have been a hearing with their Campaign and Elections Committee on the Senate side, but no, let's make it a press conference. You don't have to tell anybody till an hour before, and you'll have all the cameras there, and you can bring in certain people and call it a press conference. But hey, that's just me. I put out a press release. We put out a press release yesterday, and blessings came from Chairperson Janelle Branchin from the Campaign Elections on the Assembly side. I also had support from Representative Chuck Wickers from the 83rd District down in the Waukesha area. An incredible guy, absolutely incredible guy. And Representative Scott Allen, also from that neck of the woods, the 97th Assembly District. Incredibly articulate, very intelligent people, all three of them. Scott impresses me every time I speak with this guy. He's something else. But I had colleagues support this press release because of its merit, because of its truth, because of its factual information. And it went out, and it had to address the injustice of what happened on Monday. This office has been accused of gaslighting the people by Senator Breniers' office. I got a message from her on that. I really didn't know what gaslighting was, to be honest with you, because I'm a guy that focuses on truth, so I don't spend a lot of time coming up with the words that describe non-truth. So when I looked it up, I realized what it meant, and then I thought, interesting. If anything was gaslit recently, it was what was occurred on Monday with Senator Breniers' press conference. Senator Brenier announced the Election Official Legal Defense Network, EOLDN, would be providing free legal defense attorneys for election officials. Why do election officials need defense attorneys? Interesting. This effort is funded by a nonprofit organization called the Center for Election Innovation and Research. We'll call that CEIR, C-E-I-R. We question the ethics and legality of clerks receiving pro bono assistance from nonprofits. So, coming from an individual who claims she's smarter than everybody else and knows what she's talking about, all evidence to the contrary. It is relevant to let the people know that of the $300 million that Mark Zuckerberg donated for elections in 2020, $250 million went to the Center for Tech and Civic Life, CTCL. You've heard that acronym quite a bit the last few months. And the remaining $50 million went to CEIR, who later received an additional $19.5 million for a total of $69.5 million. CEI founder David Becker, who was one of the 4 people at this press conference panel on Monday, was claiming that there was no evidence of fraud. But he himself has a very long history of working in elections. In 2005, an ethics complaint was filed against Mr. Becker for being partisan in a nonpartisan role against Republicans as a trial lawyer in the voting section in the U.S. Department of Justice. So he worked within the DOJ, and he had an ethics complaint filed against him because he was incredibly left-wing and unjust in his role. He was not acting as an attorney should. So he left that role shortly thereafter, by the way, not surprised, and became a senior staff attorney of the left-wing activist group called People for the American Way back in 2006. He then became director of their campaign in 2007. Afterward, he became director of election initiatives at PEW, Charitable Trusts, and created the Electronic Registration and Information Center, which is called ERIC. It's the National Voter Database, which a National Computer Voter Registration System in 2008, which currently shares voting data in 30 states. So more than half the country uses this ERIC system, which takes Wisconsin vote data, WIS vote data, and puts it into a national application or platform so it's accessible in that area as well, which I'm going to guess is, and we're going to find out, exposing Wisconsin database information to outside actors, probably the other 29 states at least, right? And vice versa. We probably can see their data. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. We find it interesting and most concerning that this individual, who happens to be the founder of the ERIC system and the CEIR, so this guy is double dipping now, would need to create EOLDN to offer pro bono attorneys to defend election officials. We find it further concerning that Kevin Kennedy, former director of Wisconsin's Government Accountability Board, which was the entity before the Wisconsin Elections Commission and the Wisconsin Ethics Commission, he also led this gentleman, Kevin Kennedy, was also the lead guy in the John Doe investigations against the Scott Walker campaign, and he's also on the board of directors for CEIR. So we had a guy who was doing bad things in Wisconsin that caused the organizational layout of the Government Accountability Board to be disbanded and reorganized. And we have the Wisconsin Election Commission, whether it's good or bad, it is the byproduct of the GAB, right? This guy was causing that to happen. He's still involved. He's back. Kevin Kennedy's back in Wisconsin. He's on the board of directors for CEIR, and he's involved in this. And Senator Kathy Brenier brought him back to Wisconsin through her press conference. Good job. Not. It appears the press conference's panel's answer for those who question the integrity of an election influenced by Zuckerberg money is to bring more Zuckerberg money from CEIR and EOLDN to protect those who took Zuckerberg money from the CTCL. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. This is a shell game here of monies that are layered on top of layers to help meet an agenda, which is not fair, safe, and accurate elections, ladies and gentlemen. These people are actors that have been involved in this process around and maybe earlier than 2007, 2008. So we're looking at decade plus where influence has been applied to the elections process, minimally in this Wisconsin, and subjectively speaking, outside the state as well. This is a national thing. There's more truth coming. We've got all kinds of stuff to happen in the near future. But I will tell you, first and foremost, I want to get back to the resolution focus and end this segment for this week and tell you that I will have a package of constitutional attorney opinions to present to the legislative body just in time for Christmas. Next week, I promise you and them the information I think is going to be needed to take the excuse away of the veil of protection that came from the Madison bubble to say, at least we have a conversation to have about what we need to do for our state. And ultimately, I believe in conversation, we'll find that we have the right, the plenary right, we have the constitutional right, we have the mechanism, and we need to move forward with an action that says our election in this state alone, we're only going to speak for us, in Wisconsin, should not have been certified because. Oh, and because, okay? So we are going to move this conversation to an action. And when that happens, we pull our 10 back and then we're done. What happens after that? Stay tuned for those coming attractions. It's going to be up to other states, and I got nothing to say about that. They do. It'll be on them. But we need to do our part. Merry Christmas. We'll talk to you next week. Yes, we'll be in the office, even though it's Christmas week. We'll be in the office, but we'll wish you a Merry Christmas anyway. Have a good one. Bye now.
It's important to make sure you always ask questions when something doesn't seem right. Just because someone claims to be an expert doesn't mean you should blindly follow their advice. That said, this concludes our 39th episode of the Ramthun Report. Remember to share this content with as many of your fellow patriots as possible. Together, we can truly restore the principles of a government of, by, and for the people. We will see you next week. God bless you and yours always.